I know not what course others may take, but as for me, give me liberty or give me death.
Acquire the threat. Track the target. Calculate the solution. Destroy the threat. For more than 2 centuries, that has been the basic formula for strategic defense, defense of our homeland. Since 1775, the United States Army has stood ever vigilant to hold the high ground of freedom. The centerpiece of our American way of life is freedom. Freedom of speech, freedom to worship, freedom from want, and freedom from fear. The cornerstone from which we have built our national heritage, and to which we remain forever committed to preserve. We hold these truths to be self-evident. Freedom is much more than an abstract idea. It nurtures and empowers the human spirit as it strives toward its highest reach. Without freedom, there is stagnation. Small wonder that freedom, like gold, is coveted and must be protected. Defending that commodity in our dynamic world takes more than might. It takes staying atop the technological high ground. The United States Army has maintained a leadership role in that mission from the time when the threat traveled at the speed of the prevailing winds, until it traveled well beyond the speed of sound. From the time when we feared artillery shells and bombs splitting the air overhead, until the time when the atom was split. The Second World War saw the emergence of both nuclear weapons and ballistic missiles. Army General Joseph Stilwell realized that combining the two had become a technical possibility. Turning that possibility into reality was the clear intention of our one-time allies, the Soviets, who were intent on challenging the U.S. to a global nuclear arms race.
The button sends a signal that starts the cross street.
The exponential explosion of other types of technological advancements was taking center stage here on the home front. Yet there were sobering reminders of a technological clock, perhaps even a time bomb, ticking worldwide. The alarm had already sounded a wake-up call. It was due time to find a defense against nuclear missile attack. Many looked toward space for a way to defend against missiles that could destroy the planet. The Redstone Arsenal in Huntsville, Alabama, became the home base for such strategic planning. The organization was known as the Redstone Anti-Missile Missile Systems Office, the forerunner of today's U.S. Army Space and Missile Defense Command. The predictions leapt off the drawing board and into orbit in 1957. The first satellite, Sputnik, transmitted a steady stream of faint radio beeps that screamed a warning to the world that the high ground of space was being held by the Soviet Union, and its proof of Soviet ICBM capability created a national emergency. The Navy's Vanguard rocket had been Washington's strategic game piece of choice. However, a series of catastrophic failures sent both rocket debris and U.S. hopes of leveling the playing field crashing. Standing in ready reserve was the Army's rocket team. they had developed a highly accurate liquid-fueled missile named for its birthplace at Redstone. A modified version of the Redstone rocket was called the Jupiter C, and when given the go, Major General John Medeiros told Washington and the world that the Army would launch America into the space age in very short order.
I promised the Secretary of the Army that we would be ready in 90 days or less.
Afterward, the Army rocket team continued to lead the nation into space, to the moon and beyond, as they became the nucleus for research and development for the newly created civilian National Aeronautics and Space Administration.
I dedicate this to the George C. Marshall Space Flight Center.
But the space race was also continuing on its military track. The Army now focused its energy on the development of tactical or shorter-range surface-to-surface missiles for artillery, and on anti-aircraft missiles to counter long-range bombers. But as any American football fan knows, offense is only half of the game. Just as critical is defense. In the era of atomic weapons and intercontinental ballistic missiles, defending the home field was indeed a challenging goal. The Army developed an anti-ballistic missile system that was a cousin to Nike Hercules anti-aircraft system. As early as 1955, mathematical calculations had proven that an incoming ICBM could be shot down with an anti-ballistic missile system. And the Nike Zeus system represented the Army's resolve to put its money where its math was. Nike Zeus research soon led to the first successful simulated nuclear missile interception. That key event used a Nike Zeus missile to verify the capability to destroy a target vehicle. The Army had driven home an important point. Despite what some detractors were saying, the feasibility of shooting down an incoming ICBM was now confirmed. The proposed deployment of the Nike Zeus system was to be patterned after the Army's anti-aircraft system that dotted the continental U.S. mainland. Both were designed to serve as webs against attacks from the sky.
Our policy dedicated to making
but the Nike Zeus deployment was grounded. Nike Zeus could not provide complete protection against a massive Soviet strike with their newly developed multiple warheads on each ICBM. Although the Kennedy administration reaffirmed the Eisenhower position not to deploy Nike Zeus, Defense Secretary McNamara did direct the Army to develop the next generation of missile defense, and to do so as quickly as possible. Almost surely, the threat of Soviet missiles in our Cuban backyard and a near war over strategic and divided Berlin helped the Defense Secretary to formulate this decision. As ordered, the Army moved out at lightning speed to develop the next generation anti-ballistic missile system. The project was named Nike X and was a technological revolution. The development of electronically steered phased array radar, for example. Unlike the earlier rotating dish radars, the phased arrays could handle many targets at the same time. This new technology cleared the way for a concept called layered defense. The concept incorporated 2 layers of missiles, one to attack incoming ICBMs at long range, and the second layer to shoot down any that may have gotten through. The development of these Nike X system missiles, the long-range Spartan, and especially the short-range Sprint missiles, pioneered developments in the areas of high-speed propellants, high-speed computers, and special heat shields. Army missile defense research had ignited the fuse to an explosion of technological breakthroughs. The critical job at hand would require calculations of unprecedented speed and accuracy, but there were no computer-integrated circuits available, nor any planned for the market. So the Army developed its own, which were the predecessors of the electronic components so prevalent in today's computers. The severe technical requirements for missile defense have continually led to technological capabilities far in advance of even the prevailing needs of industry. Between 1963 and 1967, the Army integrated and tested Nike X components, radars, missiles and high-speed computers at White Sands Missile Range, New Mexico, Kwajalein Atoll in the Marshall Islands, and other locations. Nike X components were earning their stripes. The United States was by no means alone in the race to produce an anti-ballistic missile system, nor was the USSR the only adversary equipped with nuclear weapons. In 1966, the Chinese announced that they had tested a ballistic missile with a nuclear warhead. The Soviets were also beginning the construction of an ABM system around Moscow. That was just the tip of the Cold War iceberg. Army planners had been discussing the possibility of the nth country threat, meaning that nations other than the Soviet Union might equip themselves with a few ICBMs and attempt to engage in global nuclear blackmail. Therefore, in September 1967, McNamara directed the Army to deploy some of the Nike X components as the Sentinel missile defense system designed to protect urban areas against attacks from ICBMs. The Sentinel system itself was strongly defended on Capitol Hill. Elsewhere, however, with the nation in the throes of the Vietnam conflict, anti-war protesters railed against the deployment of an anti-ballistic missile system.
After careful consideration with my senior civilian and military advisors,
as a result of the outcry, newly elected President Richard Nixon called for the Sentinel program to stop development of its sites and undergo a strategic review. One of the major concerns by all was the belief that the deployment of an ABM system around urban industrial areas would lead the Soviets to think we were preparing for a first strike. Nixon decided to deploy the ABM system around Air Force Minutemen missile launch sites. It was believed that such a system would not be destabilizing and would show the Soviets that our intentions were only defensive in nature. The new system, called Safeguard, consisted of Sentinel components. Construction of the first 2 of 12 planned Safeguard sites for the protection of Minuteman missiles around Grand Forks Air Force Base, North Dakota, and around Malmstrom Air Force Base, Montana, began in 1969. The successes in Safeguard testing are credited with bringing the Soviets to the arms negotiation table. By 1972, the first Strategic Arms Limitation Talks, or SALT, not only yielded an agreement to limit ICBMs, but a treaty to limit the number of ABM sites in both nations. Each side was limited to 2 sites, one near the capital and one near an ICBM site. As a result, construction was stopped at Malmstrom and continued at Grand Forks, with completion slated for 1975. The decision to deploy Safeguard passed by only 1 vote in the Senate. As Senator Winston L. Prouty put it, if missiles were incoming, the president would only have one option. I want to give him another button to push.
This is a purely defensive setup. I think it is going to persuade many of the nations that it's better to adopt defensive policies rather than to concentrate on the production of offensive weapons.
A later protocol to the ABM Treaty limited both nations to a single ABM site. The Safeguard system in North Dakota was completed on schedule. However, Congress decided that the system should be shut down. Only the long-range perimeter acquisition radar was left intact. In addition, Congress limited the ABM program to subsystem and component-level research and development. In 1977, the designating optical tracker confirmed that infrared optics plus